The KwaZulu-Natal Disaster Management Center says that they are assessing the damage caused by disruptive weather in the past 2 days. 4 children were injured when a school roof was blown away in the Ugu district. 70 schools have been damaged by the strong winds in several areas. About 80 households also reported damaged roofs. For more on this, we are now joined by the KwaZulu-Natal Premier, Thami Ntuli. Premier, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. What's the last assessment briefing that you got about the situation and the impact of the severe weather in the past few days?
Well, good morning, Adrian, to yourself and the viewers at home, and thank you for having me. Well, 203 schools, as per the last information I received from KwaZulu-Natal, who coordinate disaster in the province, with 14 schools, it is damaged in such a level of affecting teaching and learning. Hence, today, I am visiting those schools with the MEC for Education, Honorable Shlomuga. Not all of them, but some of them, so that I at first hand witness what extent of the damage, but we are indeed assessing the extent of quantifying the damage. There is a plan already with specific time frames, which is a plan meant to produce the exact amount that may be required to fix them, and to have some temporal measures so that learning and teaching will continue. When it comes to homes, 409 homes were affected. In fact, totally destroyed are 149. And the homeless people are 45. And the people who were affected but that are not homeless is 1,363. And with 9 injuries. Fortunately, this time around, we had no fatalities. Like one area which is called Impendle, where in almost 100 houses were affected. And the most, in fact, affected district in terms of the schools is Ugu district, wherein the largest number of the schools that were affected is in.
Yeah, and with the schools that have been affected, especially the 14 that you speak about, the ones that are severely damaged, currently, what is the intention around assisting the pupils to continue to write the exams? Because we understand with some of the schools, at least, they were already in their mid-year exams with the June exams.
I want to understand that as we speak, the means of mobile classrooms is the first point of intervention in order to ensure that teaching and learning continues. However, on visit, one will be able to report exactly what I discovered on the ground as compared to what I saw as a plan by the department.
Yeah. And this time around, Premier, what's your assessment around how residents were responding to the warnings that have come from the South African Weather Service as well as local government?
Well, this one was quite a difficult one because much of the problem was the wind, the fast-moving wind. That is what has destroyed the roofs, because here we're talking about, in the main, the roofs. And in some of the areas, the wall, not much of the floods. So it was a bit difficult one, because when you look at Impendle alone, you'll see that the houses that were affected, they're in the same area as Impendle is towards the Drakensberg mountain, and they are actually exposed to the high level of winds. So little they could do, in fact, to ensure that they move away from those areas when the wind actually arrives in their areas.
Yeah. All right. And outside of the schools that have been affected, are there any other public infrastructure that you know at this particular point that has also been impacted by those winds?
Well, in terms of the report that I've received from the coordinating department, COCTA, there's no mention of other public institutions, but I know that the teams are still assessing the damages, are still putting together. They keep on briefing their report on daily basis so that we'll have a full picture of KwaZulu-Natal to the extent of the damage, so that even if it calls for us to appeal for support from the NGOs, from the private sector, even the national government, we will do so. Already, I've requested that they begin to engage with some of the social partners so that when we go to schools, they will be part of the journey so that they will indicate whether they can assist, because what we need to ensure is to restore normality in school so that learning and teaching will continue.
Yeah. Has there been a request already sent to National Treasury with regards to that, especially with the schools?
No, I think what is happening now is to quantify the damage. Because it's something that just happened. They are quantifying the damage. As I was saying, the teams are visiting different schools. And we have sent even the IDT, which is the implementing agent, to assist in quantifying the damage. That is wherein we then will make a determination that we need to appeal to National Treasurer, or we can be able to have some intervention.
Yeah. Premier, the epicenter of these recent adverse weather and the inclement weather has been the Eastern Cape. And I wonder, as somebody who has experienced the infrastructure damage as well as the impact that some of these floods would have on human beings as well, what goes through your mind when you look at the visuals coming out of the Eastern Cape?
Well, I must send my condolences to the people of Western Cape, Adrian.
Eastern Cape,
Serious,
Eastern Cape.
honestly, of the Eastern Cape, Adrian. You see, honestly, when I watched the visual yesterday, I just remembered it was Natal in 2022, and even the recent floods, wherein we've been losing lives. And I felt we need to move with speed as government to encourage people who are building on the flooded areas really to save their lives by moving from those areas. I know that here in KwaZulu-Natal, in Umlazi, recent disaster has made the MEC, both MEC Duma for transport and women settlement, and also MEC Buthelezi, to speak to the traditional leaders for a land that is much more safer, so that people are moved away from those areas. I think that is what we need to do. I think we will need to engage local government so that they drive that program of ensuring that they engage the traditional leaders, even themselves, whenever there are people who are in the hazardous zones. They are informed that it's important that they move. Those that do have means of relocating themselves, that are working, they can do. And us as government, through human settlement and other departments, we come in and support them.
Yeah, that's
Those
actually
who
part.
cannot afford.
That's actually part of the poll that we are running today, Premier. We're asking our viewers this morning, how can government better enforce floodline building restrictions, stricter law enforcement, perhaps maybe improved monitoring or community awareness? Some people will say all of the above. But we know that legislation is currently in place and restrictions are currently in place around building on floodlines. But what seems to be the problem, Premier, from your experience as well, why we are not able to curb these decisions that are being taken by residents, even though there are these restrictions? Could it be a law enforcement problem as well?
Yeah, I'm of the view, Adrian, that the law enforcement is an issue. the bylaws enforcement is an issue. And I think that is what we need, in fact, to support municipalities so that they really adhere to their bylaws. But the other serious problem are the people themselves who, in fact, for those who will want to make money out of making people to build in floodlines zones and even in other non-designated land for residents, because there's the issue of money. But I believe that the engagement, the urgent engagement between stakeholders, government, local government, and even other stakeholders, regional leaders, is quite, in fact, pivotal, so that we address this thing together. But the law enforcement going to be the driver to ensure that we curb this.
Yeah, and just a final question still on the Eastern Cape, Premier. Has there been any request for assistance coming from the Eastern Cape asking KwaZulu-Natal to assist?
I want to believe so. I do not have an information, but I want to believe so through the office of COPTA. It could be also through the metro in eThekwini, because both we may have better resources. Because Eastern Cape is just on the boundary of KZN, hence Oku, which I mentioned, that is the most affected, is also in the boundary of Eastern Cape. So I'm of the view that we should be working together, because even in KwaZulu-Natal, during difficult times of the disaster, Eastern Cape and Western Cape, they will work with KwaZulu-Natal.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Thami Ntuli is the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal on the assessment of the impact that the severe weather in that province has caused. 233 schools that have been damaged.